and today I'm going to be doing patch 5.9 rundown from League of Legends. Sorry I'm a day late on this one, I've had a lot of personal stuff to take care of. So this patch rundown is going to be a little bit late, but hopefully I can give a little bit of insight into some of the changes they've made. Again, I haven't read all of the new info that they've put out, I've read a decent chunk of it, so I can give pretty good feedback on a lot of this information. But some of it I might not be 100% on, and you might have to give me a chance to read it, so sorry about that in advance. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing that they've done is they've changed the way you can attack move. So essentially, when you attack move now, it'll go for whatever your cursor is closest to. So if you attack move like the ground next to a champion, it's going to try to focus the champion as best it can. But if there's no target like found, so to speak, so outside of the radius that it uses, I'm not quite sure what it is, it'll just attack the nearest target like it currently does on the previous patch. This is a nice quality of life change, and it makes attack moving a lot easier. So for AD carries especially, this is really nice. Even for checking for wards. So it's a nice change. It's a quality of life change. That's about all it is. So this is a change here for like combat text changes. So you might see while you're healing, if you're healing rapidly, you might have like the green numbers pop up. Or when you get gold from last hitting a minion or whatever, you'll see like the gold value pop up. Now the numbers are bigger, you can see it more clearly, things like that. Nothing big. Okay, so here's the biggest change of this patch. Ashe, one of the original champions from League of Legends, was updated. She definitely got a lot of changes in this patch, some good. I actually think Ashe looks pretty good after this patch. We're going to run down the specifics here. So, general things, her basic attack missile speed goes up by 500. This is pretty significant because it makes last hitting easier. So for those who played Ashe, you're going to have to relearn slightly like her timing on her auto attacks. To compensate for that though, her base attack growth, her base attack speed growth, sorry, goes slightly down. And this is just purely compensation for the missile speed of the attack. That's all it is. Because this is coming across faster now, so if they left the original attack speed growth, then Ashe would be attacking faster than most AD carries, most likely anyway. I'm not sure on the numbers. So they had to tone this back. Her critical strikes also do less damage, which, as we'll see later, that it makes sense. Okay, so essentially Ashe's old Q was Frost Shot, and Frost Shot essentially, it was a toggle ability, and when you turned it on, it would slow, but it would eat some of your mana. They've changed that, so Ashe's passive is now Frost Shot. It scales off of level as well, so scales off level 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, and 16, so it'll scale 6 times. And it's a 2-second slow, which at low levels is not very significant, but as you get to when you get to level 16, like that's a significant slow. Actually, anywhere from level 10 to 16 is actually not a bad slow. And here's the change that makes the critical strike damage multiplier make sense, because anytime you attack someone that's already frost shotted, it'll do crit damage. The compensation for that though is that she can't crit normally, so yeah, she's kind of got like a multiplicative bonus based on percentage. So she doesn't have a regular crit chance, but what she can do is she can still build Infinity Edge Phantom Dancer, and that critical chance percentage that is put onto those items is going to count as bonus damage when Ashe does critically strike. That probably sounds a little bit confusing, but overall this is actually quite a strong passive, because it meshes a little bit of Ashe's old passive, which is the terrible crit chance thing, and her old Q, which was actually quite a good ability. Second thing, this is brand new as well, Ashe's new Q, Ranger's Focus. Applying Frost Shot grants focus for 4 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Activating the ability consumes all stacks, and it grants attack speed that scales up in level, and boosting Frost Shot's slow. Okay. If 5 stacks are consumed, Ashe's basic attacks are replaced by a flurry of arrows. Interesting. It's like a Runans. This is actually quite a cool ability. It's got a long cooldown. So basically, if you auto them while you have Frost Shot, and if you auto them 5 times, you can basically just consume it, and you'll get really, really strong attack speed. Plus, the slow goes up on Frost Shot. Plus, you get more damage on your autos. That's a really good ability. It's got a long cooldown, which is one thing, and its mana cost... Actually, the mana cost doesn't scale, which is nice. This is pretty cool. I'd like to see this in action. I haven't actually even patched League of Legends yet. I haven't even gone on and seen anything. Maybe Ashe is really good, maybe not. I'd like to see it. Seems like a really cool ability that really helps Ashe's team fighting. This really helps her team fighting because she'll get a lot more attack speed and she'll be able to do a lot more, put out a lot more damage because she's pretty immobile and she relies on positioning. Volley, this was her original W as well. They just made a couple changes. Like they lowered the base mana, they lowered the cooldown. You fire more arrows, but the only thing is that enemies can now block multiple arrows, which means that there's 9 arrows, but an enemy can get hit by 5 of them and only take damage from 1. So overall, like the ability is more spammable just because it costs low mana and it, less of a cooldown. But in general, Volley doesn't sound quite as good as it was before. But this is because that a lot of Ashe's damage now is going to come off her new Q, her Ranger's Focus. And Volley is more of like an additional damage tool that you have, whereas before Volley was your primary damage tool. Not much to say about that, so we'll go down to Hawkshot. Hawkshot, same principles. Same principles, except instead of range now, you now have global. And once you've put it to rank 2, you can store 2 charges. The only thing is that it takes a while to charge it. So the cooldown's actually considerably long, like 1.5 minute cooldown on your E, but the thing is it's global, which is really interesting and really good for map control, especially around dragon fights and baron fights. Like you could be in base and check if they're doing baron at like 23 minutes from bot lane or whatever. 5 seconds between casts as well, and so you can't have like, you just can't instantly put like 2 on baron. And cooldown, or sorry, and it no longer generates gold. Like before it would passively generate gold whenever you killed a minion or whatever. It doesn't do that anymore. They changed the slow duration, or the slow percentage on Ashe's ultimate. Ashe's ultimate's essentially the same, but the slow is a little bit different. Nothing much to change here. Overall, my current opinion on Ashe, she's interesting. I think she has potential to do more damage, but at the same time, I think she lacks the same problems in that she's an immobile AD carry that'll die to tanks because she has no natural shred. So she definitely, if you're gonna pick Ashe, I'd actually suggest picking Ashe as a mid laner and taking like Flash Ghost or Flash Cleanse or something. Because in the bot lane, especially like with these big tanky kill supports, and I don't know. I'd take Ashe in the mid lane rather than bot lane. Although I could see Ashe working as a lane bully because of her high attack range. So maybe a lane like Ashe Thresh, or well, Annie just got nerfed as well. We'll get to that later, but all right, that's basically Ashe. So now Akali here. The cooldown on her E was lowered, which is it's more spammable, and the AP ratio went up, which is nice for Akali, but in general, like, E's not where a lot of her damage is going to be coming from. It's going to be her Q passive. It's going to be her Q procs and her ultimate. And they've also changed Shadow Dance, her ultimate. So it now dashes Akali through her target. Now, I don't know much about Akali, I'm not going to lie. There was a pretty good Reddit post about Akali saying how this is actually a nerf. I can link that in the description. So you can read about that yourself, because in all honesty, I'm not the best person to explain it. The person on there explained it much better than I could. Moving on, Annie's attack range goes down from 625 to 575. That's pretty substantial. They say it's through her mid lane play, but honestly, it's also because of her support play. Like, Annie could just auto out the enemy support or enemy AD at level 1. And not only would she build past gold stacks on her Spell Thief's Edge, but she would just auto them out of lane and make them burn pots. It also helps for mid lane, because mid laners against Annie anyway, some wouldn't take armor. I think it's probably smart to take armor against Annie though. But yeah, this just makes Annie a little less overbearing to play against. It's a warranted change, in my opinion. Hecarim, currently one of the most broken champions in the game in terms of overpowered. They changed his top lane because he wasn't even intended as a top laner. He's intended as a jungler. So they reverted the change to his Q, or his Rampage. So now it goes back to dealing full damage to monsters. They initially took that out because they thought Hecarim would be too strong in the jungle, but he ended up being too strong in the top lane. So now they're trying to put him back into the jungle. And they've also increased the mana cost on his Rampage. So it's less spammable in the top lane, which makes his top lane significantly weaker, but it makes his jungle stronger because he's going to have blue buff anyway, or he's going to build a Sheen or something, or even a Righteous Glory, so he's going to have mana, so this won't matter. So yeah, buff to jungle Hecarim in general, nerf the top lane Hecarim. Calista, this is a pretty big Calista change. Essentially, when Calista would dash backwards, she'd gain bonus distance, but that's been removed now. Because what you could do is, like, you could Q backwards and you can go over walls and stuff. So that essentially, it would make it really hard to lock down Calista in teamfights. But this makes it harder to essentially get away from these tanks or get away from over the walls. You can still do it, but it's a lot harder. So definitely a Calista nerf, again, probably warranted. They might have to nerf more on her though. She's still a super strong champion, but I'd like to see this in live play, like how big the range nerf actually is. Morgana's W damage has been nerfed, like the damage per second at level, well, basically in the early levels, because what would happen is for support, Morgana would, this doesn't impact solo lane Morgana because you would usually max W anyway, or at least put a few points into it. But for support Morgana, you could start W and really just pull the back line of the creeps, or you could pull the enemy laners, and it would push them out of lane doing stupid damage, because you would have a little bit of AP on you as well. This makes it not as potent as a poke strategy in the early game, which is significant, and it's nice because while Morgana support's still considered good, it's not quite as good as it used to be, and this nerf is, I don't know, this nerf probably came a little bit too late, but it's still nice. There's a bug fix. This was a bug fix with Renekton as well, I believe, so we'll skip over that when it comes to later. But basically, sometimes when Nasus would pop his ultimate and Renekton, instead of gaining the extra health instantly, it would take like a quarter of a second, which is significant. Because if you're baiting and you're trying to use your ultimate to try to get them to all in you, and it doesn't come out right away, well, you could die in that span. It's only a quarter of a second, but that's significant. Nocturne got some nice changes here. His damage on his E, Unspeakable Horror, which is what fears and tethers them. The damage went up, so it's a little bit more of an early game tool now. It's not quite as useless. Which this is strong because it makes his early game ganking a little bit more potent. Because a lot of Nocturnes, if people even play Nocturne, they'll just sit in their own jungle and farm. But this is more of a, this makes E a strong dueling tool in addition to a strong ganking tool. Olaf's ultimate got a slight change, so now you basically get like a Righteous Glory when you first activate it for 1 second. It's nice for Olaf because Olaf's biggest problem is that he just can't get onto people unless he hits an axe. So if he misses, he's fucked. Like, he's not going to go anywhere. So this makes it so it's a little bit easier for him to get onto those targets, which is a nice change for Olaf because frankly Olaf sucks. So yeah, here's the same bug with Renekton, but Renekton got another change as well. So W now has a slightly extra attack range, and the self-stun on empowered cast goes down by 0.5 seconds. Nothing too significant for Renekton. Like, Renekton's actually a pretty good champion right now, but this just makes his W overall easier and more user-friendly, and the ultimate bug as well. So. Riven, one of the banes of low solo queue. Her base movement speed goes down by 5. Not too significant, but a lot of Rivens won't buy boots, so this may impact them enough just to warrant the extra 325 gold in the early game. It does take some power away from Riven, not a significant amount of power though. But the missile speed on her ultimate goes down as well. Now this is a big change because now it's essentially easier to flash out of her ultimate. Like before, it was pretty hard. You would actually need decent reaction time. No longer can you do that. I still think Riven's a decent champion. And like she still functions exactly how she does at the moment. But yeah, nice changes for people who don't know how to deal with Riven. Ryze got a couple bug fixes and stuff, and for example, Mirror Mana would every proc of his spell flux or his E that bounce would proc Mirror Mana, so he could essentially one-shot people with his E, which was not how they intended it. But yeah, that's basically the change here, so that no longer happens. Ryze's spell flux no longer triggers like single target spell effects like Rylai's as well. So it'll only trigger on the very first hit, so it won't do it multiple times. Because before, yeah, you would just get one shot with Mirror Mana, which is really dumb. This is a really big change for Tristana here as well. Her E does more damage per stack, which is good. And the big thing here is E's cast time scales with attack speed. Like, this is bonus damage per stack, 25% to 30%. Ooh. So basically, you could just keep stacking and it'll do more damage when you stack it up. Plus, like, Tristana's an 80 carry, so you'll have like a Phantom Dancer or a Bork or something. So it'll cast faster as well. This is really nice for Tristana. Like I thought Tristana was already in a decent place and she had potential to come back into the meta, but now she's going to do a little bit more damage. Actually, not just a little bit more damage. I think she'll do a lot more damage than she is right now. So this is really nice for her. Hopefully she'll be able to come back into the meta. I like Tristana. So. Trundle! One of my favorite champions in League of Legends. It's time to troll. The slow percentage of his Pillar of Ice. It goes up slightly. It goes up 5% per level. It's a nice change. It helps a little bit in the ganking, in his ganking power, his early game power. And the knockback distance goes up significantly, which is an interesting change because now it's easier to separate people from their team, which is basically what you're using your pillar for. So if you put it behind them, they'll bounce closer towards you. So now it's a really good siege tool and a really good chase tool. Xin Zhao got a little bit of a change as well. When you use his ultimate, when it knocks them back, if they're not challenged, it'll apply like a 3/4 second stun. It's a nice quality of life change. So that's about all I gotta say for that. Yeah, it's nice. And they put a nice Mulan reference in here as well, with all the force of a great typhoon. It's actually a nice buff for him, the more I think about that. Zed was unnecessarily nerfed, in my opinion. Essentially, now when you ultimate, you can't immediately go back to your ultimate. Like, when the shadow's there, you have to wait a second before you can teleport back to it. Zed, in my opinion, didn't need this nerf because he already wasn't the best pick in this meta. The meta's trending more towards things like Ziggs and Cassiopeia, things that'll put out constant DPS and scale well into the late game. Zed does currently still have his own like specific niche in the meta, and he's playable by good players. But I thought he was in a good place. Like he had his own thing. This was unnecessary. I could see Zed not falling out of the meta, so to speak, but only like the best Zeds will pick him now. Like the average Zed player will drop him from their chat pool and pick up something like Ahri instead. Okay, Cinderhulk was nerfed again. Cinderhulk no longer ramps up in damage while in combat and deals less base damage, but it deals double damage to monsters. So essentially what this does is it'll do less damage to champions because it'll have like a fixed set of damage, but it'll do more damage in general to the jungle camps. So Cinderhulk won't shred you in a fight, so when that tank gets on your ass, you won't die to just a Cinderhulk. But the jungle monsters will get ripped apart, which is good. It's a good change, and it's a step in the right direction for Cinderhulk, because Cinderhulk's currently shaping the meta, which is not a good thing. One item should not shape the meta. As of now, there's really only 4 junglers that are worth picking, and they would be Rek'Sai, Sejuani, Gragas, and Nunu. Those are easily the top 4 junglers in the game, and it's mainly because of Cinderhulk. Like, all these warrior enchant or magus enchant junglers are just out of the meta, and we don't talk about Devourer, so. Skirmisher Saber. So let's see. No longer reduces true damage. Okay, in my opinion, like that must have been a bug. Yeah, that was a bug. And the duration goes down by 4 seconds. So a definite nerf to Skirmisher Saber. The debuff goes down in terms of how much damage they'll do, or whatever. And the true damage does not get reduced. That's not supposed to happen. So this is good because Skirmishers is a big option on a lot of the junglers right now because it makes them tankier essentially, and it'll make them do more damage. So you just do Skirmisher Saber with Cinderhulk, and you can like 1v1 the AD carry, which is stupid. Dragon got a couple buffs as well because it's too easy to kill. Like for example, I was playing a ranked game yesterday, and a Nunu soloed Dragon at level 3, which it's Nunu, so that shouldn't happen. So essentially, Dragon attacks a little bit faster now. It does quite a bit more damage, and yeah, that's about it. Attacks faster, does more damage. Overall, it'll hurt a lot more. Some Howling Abyss changes. I don't know. I don't do Howling Abyss, not gonna lie. Couple things with the match history. Don't really care about that, to be honest. Couple other bug fixes. No, these are also things. ARAM things. Upcoming skins. All the Samsung White World Championship skins are coming, which is really cool. The playing card ones are coming as well. And Star Guardian Lux, the one that a lot of people are excited for. Anyway, that's about it for this patch rundown. Sorry it's a little bit late, and it was also... I actually don't know how fast it was. I can't really check the time. But, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you guys think of the patch in the description, I guess. If you have any questions about it, like the Ashe rework's pretty big, or just stuff like that, feel free to toss me some questions. I will have played the game since this point then. So I'll be able to answer your questions a little bit more in depth, hopefully. Yeah, that's about all I've got. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and peace.